Alright, how are you doing everyone? Welcome to the video. So today we're going to just take a look back on Saints Row. And mainly its community. Saints Row has had many evolutions. It's always changing. They took crazy to a crazy length. They redefined what crazy is when it comes to sequels. Let's put it that way. And sadly, parts of communities are just feeling a bit split. I mean, I know people that love Saints Row 3 and hate Saints Row 4. I know people that can't stand Saints Row 1 but adore Saints Row 2. I know people that love both 3 and 4, and I know people that love 2 and can't stand 3 and love 4. It's very weird. And I think it's mainly due to a few factors, and that's what we're going to discuss today. Now, a lot of people are going to make me sit here and go, well, it's Volitions' fault. They made a change in direction. It's all down to them. Well, it's tricky, because I don't fully agree with that. I think it's partially down to them, for sure. But I think it was also kind of out of their hands. And we're going to talk about that today. So, get your popcorn. I don't know how long this video is going to be. Hopefully it won't be too long, but hopefully there's, something to dive into here. And let's get in for this video. So now, the obvious point that split the community was 2 and 3, okay? Let's be honest, they were very different games. Both had a sort of Saints Row feel, but both were very different Saints Rows. And I mean, 4 took it even crazier. But in a weird way, Saints Row has always just took it one step further. They've always had structure. It's been a completely fucked up structure, but it's structure nonetheless. It was, let's just go crazier and crazier. And I feel like they did that. Let's be honest. They did that better than anyone else. They had a gritty, realistic gangster game with a slight bit of humour tossed into there to make an amazing story with great plot points. Then they had Saints Row 2, up the crazy, but still an amazing gangsterish game, where while the gangster tones were a little lower and the craziness was a bit higher, perfect mesh. But then they went to 3, and 3 being one of my favourite games, I'm not going to talk shit about it, but it's very obvious it was a disconnect from 2. It was a downgrade in many areas, and it's where, for a lot of people, Saints Row fell off, and I get that. But what if I told you it might not have been completely Volitions' fault in one way, but it was completely their fault in another way? So, it's tricky. To me, what it looks like is Volition wanted to make a game that wasn't a gangster game, and that's fine. With them making the games, they deserve to have the creative freedom they want. But, let's be honest, Volition's not a big company, and in my mind, if they wanted to make a brand new IP, they were going to take a loss. I mean, look at Agents of Mayhem, and that's after having Saints Row 3, one of the best-selling games, come out, and Saints Row 4 also do well, and getting new publishers. They had a brand new IP come out that was supposed to be different, and it flopped. Now, a lot of that was down to marketing, but let's just be honest, people weren't interested in the core game. It wasn't a very good game. And what was that down to? A million things, let's be honest. They probably didn't want to put too much money into it, because if it bombed like it did, they might not be able to make a new game. And I feel like they had to be very cautious with what they could do as a fucking company. Because think about it. If they would have made a game that wasn't Saints Row, when they didn't have the funds to back up a loss on a game, they'd have been fucked. Would have never had a Saints Row again. So I think what they did is they tried to slowly go towards a different tone of game. And that's how they kind of manipulated their way into making the game they wanted to make with their creative freedom. It's quite obvious since Saints Row 3, they wanted a futuristic game. I mean, you went from gritty gangster with realistic weapons, and while some tones of it weren't too realistic in Saints Row 2, it was quite realistic overall compared to 3. It was more gangsterish. And then you have 3 with these laser weapons and VTOLs. It's very clear that at 3... they wanted to make Saints Row a bit more sci-fi. And I think 3 was an okay tone if it kept some of its gangster parts, but it didn't. I was fine with having some futuristic stuff, but with losing its tone, it upset a lot of people. But to me, it just seems very clear that they wanted to do something different than gangster. I think we can all admit that, and we all probably know that. Whether you hate them for what they did or love them for what they did, they didn't have the creative freedom because of budget. I mean, they couldn't afford to take a loss. At least that's how it looks to me. I mean, I'm an outsider looking in. I can only say so much. I only know so much. This is just my opinion. But to me, it just seems like they didn't want to make a Saints Row. They wanted to make something different, but just didn't have the money and couldn't take the loss. So, Saints Row 3 was born, and Saints Row 4 was born. And that's where they turned the crazy up crazy to get what they wanted. And I can't attack them for that. It must be a tough position to be in as a developer, wanting to make the art you want to make, but can't. I mean, in a way, look at it as a YouTuber. Imagine if you wanted to make a commentary video, but you didn't have a mic. Or imagine you wanted to... No, here's a better way to put it. Imagine you upload videos, and they get 1,000 views every single day, continuously 1,000 views on this video style. But then you upload the content you actually want to upload, and it gets 0 views. What they tried to do was merge the videos slowly towards what they wanted to make. And it's very clear they like sci-fi. I mean, look at the TARDIS reference in the new reboot. It's pretty clear they like to watch a lot of sci-fi shit. I mean, Doctor Who's quite sci-fi. And to me, it just seems like they really wanted to make a game that wasn't a gritty gangster game. And I think that's something I can't attack them for. I think it's pretty unfair to say, you guys fucked up for trying to make something you wanted to make and thought would be great. In my mind, if Volition, the entire time while making games, were going, we're trying our best, and we're just trying to make the game that we think we want and the game that we think you want, I can't attack them for that. I mean, sure, it might not have been what we wanted, but if they were at least trying to make what we wanted, you can't fault them. And I think it must be a pretty hard, creative decision to go, we have to change everything, otherwise we'll never be able to do anything we want with the game. I mean, look at COD. I think this is a perfect way to explain it. Look at COD. COD is just the same shit over and over and over again. Same shit, different paint job. And that's probably what Saints Row would have been by the 4th iteration if it was the exact same. I mean, where do you go from 2? Look at the innovation from 1 to 2. Realistically, you can't innovate more than that. 2 still holds up to today. It's better than most games today. I mean, sure, what, were you going to add dialogue options? Make it a fucking, MMO? That's not what we want. 2 was really innovative, and I think it was a bit unfair to expect them to innovate like that in every single game. So, to me, it just seems like they were boxed in. They had fans who wanted Saints Row 3, the gangster game, and they wanted to make something different, but they just weren't given the creative freedom. And that must suck, like I said. It must be pretty shit. But let's get on to the community. How has the community reacted to this? How has the community accepted the fact that they would wanted to try something different? They made it the best-selling game in the series. Yeah, Saints Row 3. It sold the best. You can't blame Volition for changing direction, sticking with a direction that worked. Okay, you just can't. To me, that makes no sense. I understand as OG fans, we want gangster, okay? But if you're asking a company to choose between bigger budget to work with on their games or pleasing a few angry people about their current games, it's quite obvious. And it's not that Volition doesn't care about fans. I think Volition's one of the more caring companies. I mean, look at the live streams. Look at how inclusive they make us feel with the games. We are constantly getting updates from them about Saints Row while it was in development. We knew this game was coming out before the official announcement. They were very nice to us as a company. But to expect them to go, well, let's give up money to make a few people happy, when, relatively speaking, Saints Row 3 was well received. I mean, it wasn't as well received as 2, but a decently received game and best-selling game is going to have higher ratings than a not very well-selling game and really high ratings, just because of the scale they were on. It's very tricky. And to me, I can't fault Volition too much for its change in direction. But I will admit, old fans must feel left in the dust. I think that that's the saddest part about this all, actually. Volition has been made out to be some big evil entity now that they've changed direction in the game, when they were just trying to go with whatever creative design they wanted. And while it might not have been what we wanted, I think them as artists should be allowed to make the art they want. Sure, they didn't have to slap Saints Row on the front of it, but they did, because if the game flopped, they'd never be able to make art again. It's very tricky for them, and I almost feel bad for them in one way. because they've managed to make two communities. They've got old fans, new fans, both pulling them in separate directions. And realistically, all Volition wants to do is make the fans happy, make the game they want to make it as good as possible. But the fact that they can't just switch up and make a new IP must be holding them back. I mean, imagine if right now all I could upload was Saints Row videos. I mean, right now, I could upload a video, and while it might not do as well, it would get a couple hundred views, and that's enough for me. A couple hundred views on a video would be okay. But, like, the fact that they have to spend so much money into making a game for it to flop how it did, it must be tough. And I mean, a lot of people will go, like I said earlier, well, let's make a new IP then. It's like they can't do that because of budget. I mean, look at Agents of Mayhem. Sure, the marketing was shit, but this was Volition. They branded it very much Saints Row. Okay? Let's be honest. And even the Saints Row name couldn't give a pull enough to get this game to sell well. Even having Saints Row on the front didn't make this game sell well because it wasn't a Saints Row. Because let's be honest, they marketed it as Saints Row 4.5. But even that wasn't enough to bring this new IP close enough to where they wanted it. And it flopped and faded out of irrelevance. In 10 years, no one will remember Agents of Mayhem. Or they'll remember it as the Saints Row failure. And that's pretty sad, because it's quite obvious they put a lot of effort into it. I mean, there's other things too. I mean, sure, Agents of Mayhem was a buggy mess. But so was Cyberpunk. And I mean, that game sold decently well. And it was nowhere near the level of Cyberpunk. And I just think that for Volition, with them not being able to make the game they want to make, they've tried to slowly merge Saints Row into that, and that has split up the community. And it must be tough, and I feel like the community has not accepted this in the slightest way. And not many people have been very understanding, because to most people on the outside, to me at first, it was Volition switched up, they turned their back. But I don't think it was like that at all. I think the Volition didn't have a choice, because the one time they tried to make a new IP, to make a game they wanted to make and have full creative control, they had to lay off 50 people. You can't do that as a company. That's not good business practice. And they had to choose between upsetting a few people and making the art they wanted to make. And let me put it this way. If I wanted to upload a video that I knew would lose me 100 people, but it was a video that in my heart I wanted to make, I would make that video. And I'm pretty sure so would you. Anyway, thank you for watching. That's why I think the community is so split. Don't be too mad at me, please. I know a lot of people are going to take this as a way to be angry at me, because that's the internet now. I'm sure I'll get a ton of hate comments because I've tried to play devil's advocate here. And I'm not even condoning what Volition did. I'm just simply trying to put across their thoughts. Put across their point of view, because what else can they do? They can't outright say we didn't want to make a new Saints Row, because then it would sell even worse. It's tricky. And I appreciate you for listening. Anyway, I'll catch you all later. Stay safe. I love you. Goodbye.